Once known as the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort was a fast-earning, big-spending financier and stockbroker before spending nearly 2 years in jail for multi-million-dollar financial crimes.
Now, he still owes several $million to the US government, and he makes his living as an author and a motivational speaker. And he did some motivational speaking to a sporting code that you might be quite familiar with. We'll talk about that soon as well. Jordan Belfort joins us now in the studio. Jordan Belfort, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Let's cut straight to that particularly curious issue. You were a motivational speaker for the Melbourne Storm some time ago.
Yeah, last year when the playoffs started, I gave a couple of speeches to them, and first one was right before I think they played Manly, and they did really well against Manly, so they called me back again. And what I was doing with them is stuff that I do with entrepreneurs and business people. So I was showing them how to anchor in states of confidence and certainty.
And how to breach salary caps as well? Were you teaching that?
You know, I knew someone was going to say that. Nah, I didn't show them. I guess someone on the higher levels figured it out for themselves. Well, I'm sure the players, listen, they're amazing guys, and I'm sure, had nothing to do with it. But it's, I think, a good time for them to show the rest of the world now that despite the fact that there's no points involved, they're going out, they're playing with heart, they're winning, and I think that's what a true champion does. I think they're going to show the world some really great stuff by still playing the hearts out every single day.
You don't think some of the administrators were so motivated by your talks that they did a bit of research into your former life and got a few tips?
You can say, you know
this is all your fault.
It's all my fault,
yeah.
I know. Listen, I think that, the truth is there's salary caps in my country too.
Yep.
And I know that, especially in college where there's no salaries allowed at all, they still have ways of getting around it with incentives. And I'm guessing, without knowing, that what was happening at Melbourne Storm was probably happening in other places too. That doesn't make it right. And when you get caught, you get caught. And I think that it should serve as an example to people that, I guess, that they can still go out there and play and do well, even despite what happened,
Jordan Belfort, so if you can, just briefly, tell us how high you flew and how low did you go in this incredible career of yours?
I went about as high as you can go. I was 25, 26, making $50 million a year, not in sales, in take-home pay. I owned about 40 or 50 different companies, including a huge one, Steve Madden Shoes, which I started from scratch. And, most of what I did was legit, like 95%. And it was the 5% of greed that got me to really go over the line. So I could have made, let's say, $30 million a year and done it right. Now, you could live on $30 million, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I broke the law because of greed, made $50 million, in the end lost everything. Went to jail, lost my family, my self-respect, my freedom, of course, and I had to start over. And I think that, now that I do seminars and speak at corporations and stuff, I think what people connect with is that, you could be as low as I went. Because, I lost everything, and I was in jail, locked up. And I came back from that by simply really putting one foot in front of the other and focusing on where I wanted to go versus what was wrong in my life. And it's tough to do sometimes.
And let's not forget there was a lot of collateral damage in your fall as well. A lot of investors were led down the garden path by the practices you were following.
Clearly. And I think that, one of the things is that when I got caught, and I was addicted to drugs in a massive way. I know a lot of people in Australia have read my book, and I had some ridiculous drug addiction. And when I got sober and I looked at the wreckage that I'd caused, it was awful. And you can't change the past. And I think what I've done in the last 5 years is I've paid back a tremendous amount of money towards this fund. A couple of other people have too. And my goal is to have it completely paid off in the next couple of years. And I think that what you can learn from my story more than anything, especially with the GFC, the global financial crisis, is that you can't be half pregnant when it comes to ethics. In other words, I was doing most stuff right. This much in the financial business that's wrong, it's magnified, amplified, and it reverberates around the world economy, like Goldman Sachs right now. They're not a fraudulent firm, but that little element of it has caused massive damage.
Let's talk about those particular issues that have come up through the GFC, because I imagine you would have been watching all that very, very closely.
Yeah.
When you're looking at things like, CDOs and the like, and those weird little units and programs that some brokers put together, were you looking at that time thinking this is all just a house of cards?
Absolutely. A good friend of mine is a partner at Goldman Sachs.
Right.
We were out for dinner right before the crisis hit. I said, let me just ask you something. What are you guys doing, putting all this money, giving loans? Because what they were doing on the high levels was funding loans for homeowners. Now, this didn't happen in your country. They were funding loans for homeowners that had zero credit, no job, some of them, no income check, 100% financing, and they had crappy credit to start with, and they're giving people this opportunity to have, the American or even the Australian dream to own a home. Now, it's hard for someone, even if that, the homeowner, how do you refuse that? These people never thought they'd own a beautiful home, and the banks are throwing homes at them, and it's being funded by Wall Street, and then Wall Street's packaging these mortgages up into CDOs, which is called collateralized debt obligations, right? The credit rating agencies are on the take. They're stamping them AAA when they're really crap, and they're selling them around the world to countries like Iceland and Greece, and you see the result of that. And,
And what did your friend say to you when you said, what are you doing?
He's like, no, the housing market always goes up. I'm like, no, it doesn't. I'm like, but they have these charts, Goldman. And he's an ethical guy. He's just like everyone had blinders on because everyone was making so much money and everyone's looking the other way and they're saying, well, what's the worst that can happen? Housing go down 5%? No, it doesn't. When it cracks, you look at 20%, and this was one of those things where it just unwound. That as soon as enough steam came out of the system, it collapsed like a house of cards.
Do you fear a lot of that risk-taking, a lot of that cowboy behaviour is seeping back into Wall Street now? The ruins of the global financial crisis are being essentially behind the world.
I think that the answer is yes, and I think that it's important that the nature is risk in Wall Street. People are going to take risks. People want to make money. And risk is okay if it's managed correctly. The problem is that in the old model, Wall Street brokers and bankers were getting compensated based on annual earnings. They made money in one year, they got a bonus.
Yep.
But sometimes the instruments they were getting bonused on didn't pan out for 5 years. In other words, you make money on something because you think you're making money, but actually it's a piece of crap. And 5 years later, the investment's worthless. So they took the bonus in the good times, and then it devalues, and do they give the bonus back? No. So I think the answer is, on some level, you have to make sure that compensation is tied to longer-term strategies versus shorter-term strategies. And that will really disincentivize bankers and brokers from putting crap out into the market.
Jordan Belfort, we'll see if you actually have to give some motivational speaking to some ex-Goldman Sachs executives in the next few years.
Yeah.
But it's good to have you on the program.